The recent situation with ChannelFireball games has sparked a wave of panic that is making some Magic players think that we are headed towards a massive singles market crash.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. One more time, my friends, I will mention that if you like the intro, we have available My Bones Hurt merch. So you can find that linked down in the comments below if you want to grab some for yourself. Now, we are here today to talk about the ChannelFireball situation, what has gone on, because in all honesty, there's some panic, there's some confusion about the scenario, and so I'd like to break down what's being said, what's actually going on, and what this could all mean overall. So, I found out about this basically during a live stream when somebody popped in to say, hey, ChannelFireball's not going to be selling singles anymore. And it's like, whoa, okay, wait, what did you just say? It's like ChannelFireball, one of the recognizable names, right? A lot of people recognize the name of that organization. In fact, these are the guys who were responsible for running a bunch of the big Magic physical events, right? Like if you went to Grand Prix or things like that, ChannelFireball was the organization putting those events together. And also, obviously, they sell Pokemon cards, they sell Magic cards, they sell all the rectangles that a young or old person could want to have, right? So what's going on? Obviously, hearing that they're getting out of the singles game is big news, right? There are some reports online, you know, you can see there's like a news article saying ChannelFireball stopped selling MTG and Pokemon singles, which on one hand is true, but there's like the situation isn't that cut and dry, because what's going on really is that ChannelFireball is essentially undergoing, I don't know what the terminology is because I'm not like a big corporate kind of guy, like a conceptual restructuring is what I'll call it. So up until this point, ChannelFireball has been a place that you can go and acquire your singles from. But now they're going to be basically getting rid of all of their inventory to a company called Good Games. So they're going to be selling, this is my understanding of it, right? I may have some of the details slightly muddy, but overall what's going on is pretty clear. So ChannelFireball is getting rid of all their singles and kind of getting out of the singles game, but not fully. What's happening is ChannelFireball is kind of morphing into this what is it? Basically, do you know TCG Player, where TCG Player is a market where tons of different sellers can go and sell their cards individually? So TCG Player isn't like, if you go to like a Star City Games, a ChannelFireball, like sites like that, they're just, here you go, we sell you the singles directly. Whereas TCG Player is like, yo, here's a bunch of different people selling it, here's the prices they're charging and whatever. So it's like a grand bazaar of Magic cards. And actually, since we're talking about TCG Player, and I don't bring this up frequently, I actually have a link, I have an affiliate link with TCG Player that is always in the description of every one of my videos. So if you're ever buying cards on TCG Player, use that link and you help the channel. I mean, I know I don't normally bring it up, but since we're literally talking about TCG Player, I'd say, you want to help me out? You want to give daddy some money to buy some nice pies and get crumbs all over my face? Use that link. All right. So TCG Player is, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest, most sprawling, individualized market for like each person, not an individualized market, sorry, group market for individualized sellers. Pretty much anybody can become a TCG like associate seller. I don't know what the terminology is, all right? Because I don't have like my own little mini web store. Some people, when they see I have a TCG Player link in the description, think that means I'm selling cards. But no, I don't have a storefront or anything like that. It's just if you buy cards using that link, I get a little percentage. So sellers have the ability to list all their own individual cards on these websites and sell them, or on, I don't know how many different websites there are. Like, let's be real. TCG Player has established itself as like the top dog in this category. So now what's happening is ChannelFireball, who is either being absorbed by Good Games or rebranded as Good Games. I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is, but they're going to be operating this marketplace. And the marketplace is going to function, as far as I understand it, very similar to the TCG Player setup. Now, they will also have their own kind of storefront selling singles on this overall marketplace. So it almost just really feels like a business shift with a name change, but they're still going to be selling singles in a way, right? It's just under a different name and in a slightly different fashion. So I feel like the headlines and people running around saying like ChannelFireball isn't selling singles anymore is a kind of isn't selling singles anymore, because you're still going to have the ability to buy singles like almost through them. I guess just maybe in the most legal sense, the name ChannelFireball, you won't be able to buy singles from that name, right? But the same group of people behind it will still be selling these cards. So, like, ultimately you have to look at what's driving this decision. Why are they turning around and going, we're getting out of the singles game? And I believe it's because we're seeing essentially a paradigm shift, or we've already seen it, and ChannelFireball is just kind of catching up with what's going on. Because there was a long time, like if you look at the way that cards have been priced throughout Magic's history, I mean, if you go back far enough, it's pretty archaic. Guys, people used to use magazines that would show up once a month, and they would take what it said in it as the price. And then as we went along, and I mean, I'll admit, back in the days of the magazines, it was very hit or miss how many people were even willing to take the magazine's valuations on stuff. Like, I remember the magazine telling people, hey, that new Mirage card, Grinning Totem, it's worth 20 bucks. And so people went, I remember like, hey, I want to get your Grinning Totem. And he's like, all right, the magazine says they're $20. And I was like, actually, you know what? I don't think I'm going to use Grinning Totems after all. And they're like, well, you know what? I want your Grinning Totems then. I'm like, sure, no problem. So I noticed your magazine there. It says that these dual lands, these revised dual lands like Tundra and Tropical Island, they're like 10 bucks each. So how about you give me 2 dual lands for a Grim Monolith? Okay, here you go. So like back then, the prices were absolutely all over the place, and it was very much, do you accept these prices or not? But then as we shifted along, especially with the increase in people using mobile phones is really what drove a big change in things, where people started to use established website pricing. So you'd have places like Star City Games, for example. Star City Games, for a considerable amount of time, was one of, like, if not the top site that people use to determine valuation of cards. And it was pretty much accepted that their prices were a very good baseline with a little bit of, you know what, I don't agree with this price here or this price there. But it really kind of got codified where you could pull out your phone, look up the value of things, and you could be reasonably sure that that was a useful number to use. And as a result, we saw a shift away from the trading economy to the buying and selling economy, which was a massive, massive shift. Like when I started Magic, it was all about trading, and very few people bought singles, and they bought them infrequently. Whereas now people consider trading most of the time to be a big hassle, and they don't want to deal with the back and forth. So having that whole, boom, I can just look up the prices on this website was a pretty revolutionary thing, right? It cuts out a lot of bargaining and hassle. So for the longest time, those websites were the way that prices were determined. Now we've reached the point where you have something like TCG Player, where TCG Player takes all the prices that everybody is charging and essentially uses them to give you like a barometer of prices, right? You can have low, medium, and high prices. Now, obviously, when it comes to cards that there are very few of, you can have wildly skewed results because the individual sellers can list stuff for whatever they want to list them for. And so they can put cards on the market at absolutely absurd prices that are out of touch with reality, right? Like not everybody who's going to be on one of these marketplaces is going to be in touch with prices. I have a couple cards that were sent to me by somebody who went out somewhere, and this individual who was selling Magic cards knew nothing about them. So they had these like graded mythics that were worth like $1.50, and they're graded and they're in cases or whatever. And they had like $50 price tags put on them. So you can have this sort of outlier effect where on corner cases, cards are showing up way more expensive than they should on the website. But for the majority of cards that exist, things like TCG Player that are able to aggregate massive amounts of data, they give you a pretty good reflection of the prices and what's going on. So ultimately, I think what's happened, now I can't say this with certainty, but I think what's happened is ChannelFireball has seen what's blowing in the winds of change, right? And realized, you know what? Being like, essentially, if you are just a singles market website now, you are the equivalent of one person working on TCG Player. Now, obviously, that is a simplification. As a gigantic retailer, like depending on how big you're, or as a big online single seller, whatever, depending on the size of your presence, you could be considerably more than just one TCG Player outlet. But the truth is, back in the day, the big websites only had to battle each other in terms of being able to pull things in with their buy list, setting their prices and whatever. There was only a handful of names in the game. Now, I mean, just during the course of this video, 100 people watching this video could be like, yo, I'm gonna go set up a TCG Player store. And all of a sudden, there's 100 more people in the market. Now, do they have the quantity of cards that these big websites have? No, but once you aggregate up enough of them, right? Like, let's say you're running a card shop. You've got a big website and you've got 200 copies of a rare. Well, if 500 people come along and they each only have 2 copies, there's 1,000 more copies. They together dwarf the amount of stock that you have and have more ability to influence the market overall, right? Because they're all setting, it's this setup where basically the power has been put into the hands of the many, right? So when you combine that with what's going on with the current creation of Magic cards and the way that Wizards of the Coast is doing things, you get this vice kind of effect. Because on one hand, you have all these other independent sellers that you're competing with, and on the top, like that's the bottom of the vice. And the top of the vice is Wizards of the Coast actions that they're taking right now. And you can see that what Wizards of the Coast is doing is having a real impact on the singles market, right? There's a number of different strategies that they're enacting. One of the most noticeable has to do with the collector's booster packs, all right? Because collector's booster packs are like, here's your cream of the crop booster pack. We've crammed it with foils and premium editions, right? So when you crack a collector's edition, the first part is all foils and it's all essentially garbage, but it's just dumping more copies of foils out into the market. The same goes with extended borders. For like the only thing that collector's boosters really have that are special to them are the extended borders that don't exist in regular booster packs. Now those cards seem to have kind of kept, they're taking the majority of the value now, it feels like. Whereas everything else is being pushed down drastically. You can get extended bordered mythic planeswalkers that are available in regular boosters and collector boosters, and they'll be going for like $1. Now, if you've been paying attention to Magic for a long time, the idea of a special printing planeswalker being $1 like a week or two after a set comes out, that's nightmare fuel from the perspective of somebody who plans to open product to sell it, right? Like the amount of this stuff that's flooding the markets when you combine collector's editions, increasing the amount of premium cards, and the fact that Wizards of the Coast has intentionally increased the amount of foils in regular boosters as well. We've got this scenario where foil prices have tanked so hard that sometimes, bizarrely, I've seen foil prices that are listed less than the regular price. And I'm guessing part of that might have to do with certain sets, Commander Legends being a prime example. The cards came out very warped, so having a regular version is more desirable. But on top of the foil situation, these special extended border versions and things like that, they have crushed the price of regular singles. From the perspective of the everyday Magic player, if you don't care about premium versions of Magic cards, it's like a golden era of super affordable singles, right? Like quarter-cent, 50-cent rares in abundance. Rares that never would have been 50 cents before are now 50 cents just because of the price pressure that's created by all these different variations. So there's not as much room to extract profit from singles that are opened from booster packs and things like that. And then you have Wizards of the Coast also turning around and creating the secret layers where they're literally entering into selling singles directly to consumer, right? You've got not just secret layers for that, but you also have things like Commander Collection Green, Signature Spellbook. Wizards of the Coast is making a bunch of different inroads in selling singles directly to the consumer, thus again crushing down the margins that these big websites basically need to thrive. So as a result, you get a scenario now where ChannelFireball is forced to look at it and go, okay, we need to do something. So now they're creating the same model as TCG Player, where basically you go out and sign up as a seller, you sell your individual cards, and ChannelFireball gets a delicious little taste. They get to wet their beak, right? So that's the idea behind it. Now, for me, I don't see this shift of ChannelFireball and what's going on right now as a signal of any kind of impending market crash. I mean, I'll be real. There's a ton of money that's been poured into Magic lately, and market prices have gone kind of crazy, and things do seem like, I don't know, maybe a bit bubble-ish, but it doesn't feel like we're looking at some massive, like, elbow drop to prices, although I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of decrease showing up within, like, the next year or so, but who knows? I mean, the Magic market seems to be red hot right now mostly, so this just seems like the big websites like that have to find different ways to survive. I don't think this affects really much anyone other than that, because TCG Player seems to be chugging along just fine, right? And again, I'll mention one last time, make sure to use my TCG Player link when you use a TCG Player, all right? So, just wanted to talk about the scenario. For those of you who are thinking like, the sky is falling, don't worry about it. It doesn't feel like that to me. It just feels like the optics that people are placing on this, the whole like, they're getting rid of all their singles kind of mentality is what's getting people worked up, but ultimately they're really just shifting their business model, right? And if they were going, yo, we're selling tennis shoes, then maybe you'd go, okay, they're straight up leaving. But now they're just looking to do the same thing in a different way. So for me, my opinion is things will probably continue roughly the way that they are. All right, so link to my newest lore video up on the screen. Name of my patrons scrolling on by for my top patrons. Thanks for supporting what I do. And Bubbles, you're there on the end of the list. Thanks for joining up today. Appreciate it. See you guys later.